everybody. It's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. Today we are doing that next episode of
Today we are reviewing
Daredevil.
It took you that long to come up with that. Today, actually, we are reviewing a book called The Adventures of Meningitis.
What the hell are you talking about? Well, this week they had released 2 episodes of Daredevil.
And Safi really bitched out on the day that it came out, and she's like, no, I don't want to do it. And so now we're doing it.
True, so I don't know what he's talking about.
Now we're doing it on Friday night. And this was episode 6.
Okay.
Called Excessive Force.
Huh.
I think it was a step up from the last episode for sure. I think that it was another episode that kind of felt like a Daredevil comic of the week. It kind of felt like I don't know, like I have like a less positive feeling about the show in general than I did when I started it, because a big issue that I'm having is the pacing and story structure, because I really don't feel like the plots are well seasoned. You know, like when you do a TV show, it's like you're cooking a piece of meat, and you need to put all these different seasonings on it, and you need to do it evenly. You need to do it to where it makes sense. And this show feels like it's not really consistent with the seasoning. It's like, for instance, like this whole episode mostly deals with the Muse out of nowhere. And it really, to me, it doesn't feel properly set up. It feels like they had this weird moment in the first 2 episodes where the guy who is the Muse met with the therapist. And I had thought that he would be interacting with the therapist like on and off in the first half. But instead it's like that was just like one scene, so I don't even know if that ever comes up again, him and the therapist. Maybe like when he goes to court or something. Like I don't know though, because I felt like the way that his plot was like set up and then it finally comes to a head in this episode, it didn't really feel earned. It kind of felt like...
What didn't feel earned?
The whole thing. Because it was like we got a little build-up last week, I think, or the week before. I can't even remember, because it's so inconsistent. The story structure, the plot, the way that it's being told.
You mean where they showed that serial killer guy? The Muse.
Well, they just...
He did. They've shown him in a couple of episodes. One
they just
was
show...
like right at the beginning where he's carrying something through a doorway, which was probably a body.
I know.
And then another time showing up in the doorway and looking at these 2 girls with who they end up getting murdered. So he's like made these... It's almost like cameo appearances.
But they just show like little glimpses, little cameo appearances.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just felt like this episode kind of felt like it was out of nowhere. But it was an okay episode. I thought, like, before we really get into it, what did you think of it, Safi? I mean, you're just kind of like a... you gave up on the original show, so you're not a huge Daredevil fan. You're more of like a normie.
No. Well, it's really weird because we do this door dashing, and we see these meals, and it's almost like this episode was like a plate of real plain like spaghetti noodles with nothing on them, and then at the end. You have this really rich meat sauce that's kind of grouped together in cheese in a circular, like it was put in a cake pan, and it's molded into like a small cake shape. You put it in the middle of these plain old noodles. And what I mean by that is that all the way up until the last, what would you say, 3rd or 4th of the episode, you really don't have a lot going on. You're having kind of a descriptive, kind of semi-build-up to what may be coming down the line. So one big thing, but it's still just, it's a sprinkling. It's not real heavy. And it's not slow.
I thought it was very slow.
Not much
this
is
episode.
going on, though. Not with Daredevil, and not even with the mayor.
Yeah.
See, this is a show, and I don't know how they're going to end it this season, because, like, what, there's supposed to be another season after this?
They're filming it. They're filming it right now.
Wow. Okay, so anyway, everything seems to center. I mean, it builds up around Daredevil and the Kingpin. They're like a sandwich, and they're a dichotomy where there's two entities next to each other, and they're building up. You know, the last year or whatever it is, they've been in a stasis where the mayor, or he wasn't mayor, but that guy disappeared. I don't know where he went. Probably Marco did because he watched the other shows, and I didn't. And then Daredevil's friend was killed, and he wouldn't be Daredevil anymore, just the lawyer. So both of them have had this kind of quiet, so to speak, life, and then they come, and then all these things start happening, and their true feelings about what they really want to do instead of what they're doing now start to come out. And last week, or the last episode, I should say, like for Daredevil, you could see that he was struggling, like, oh, I want to do this, I can't. I just can't. He would look at pictures of Foggy. He did it this episode too. I can't do it. And then this daughter of that, remember, he just tried to save that guy in court, and he did. And I guess that isn't his daughter. Whatever she is to him, she's his relative.
That was his daughter.
It was his daughter. Okay, and she. No, he gets killed, and and they all know the police did it. At least that's what they think. And she goes to the lawyer and says, what are we going to do about this?
That's been another thing that's not really been followed through on, is the whole plot with the police blaming the Punisher on these killings. Like they have, I guess they're not really fully setting that up yet or something, but like they had that one killing, and now it's like nothing's happened with that. That's what I'm saying about the story structure of the show is a mess, because it very much feels like just random stuff. And these two episodes, I would say, are probably the worst of the season.
Really?
Because the end of this episode's really good, but they're so slow, and they're so much like they're just not really up to what the original show was. Whereas the first 4 episodes, they had a lot of unique things about them. They had a lot of things that made it feel like, okay, this is something different. I can't wait to see the Daredevil stuff. And to be fair, though, the Daredevil stuff was really, really good when it finally happened. And now that he's back, maybe it will finally be the show that could be really good. I mean, it just...
Well, it's not going to be exactly like you're saying, because you've got this stuff with the Kingpin and everything that's going on with him.
Well,
so,
yeah,
I said, it's a sandwich, so that's the rest of the sandwich.
It's very different from the old show, because in the old show, Kingpin felt very elusive and kind of like... I mean, you never got to see this amount of personal anything.
Yeah, I remember that.
Even in the 3rd season, it was very much like... I mean, you saw some personal glimpses here and there, but he was very much like an elusive, villainous character who's like in the background. It's like his character is so big that like he's too, like, Daredevil and all the other characters are down here and he's up here, and it's like they can't see into his world. But in this show, it's like these two characters they keep on paralleling them.
Yes.
Which is very bizarre. I don't really think I've seen that as much before, but I think it's actually kind of cool it reminds me a lot. I'm going to mention the old Spider-Man movies of Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, because they did the same thing of those. You know, like in the first movie, you had Green Goblin, and you saw his story kind of paralleling Peter's story. And in the second story, you had Doc Ock, of course, and Harry's becoming the Green Goblin, Green Goblin Jr. And, like, the way that they did that with, like, telling these character stories side by side, I thought it was really cool. And so I think that the people who make this show, they really took influence from those movies. I could be wrong, but another thing that kind of points to my theory is all the video that we constantly see. In every episode, we see videos of random people in the city talking about Daredevil.
Yeah, it's like they're being interviewed by a reporter.
And that's exactly what they did in Spider-Man 1.
Oh.
They had a whole sequence where they just interview people about Spider-Man. And that was really good. And so I think that this show, people, I don't think that they've talked about this yet, how much the show is influenced by those Sam Raimi movies, because that's what I feel like. I feel like this, I could easily see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man being in the same universe as this Daredevil now, which they're not, unfortunately, but I could see it. Safi from Safi and Marco dish out on movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. What else do you have to say?
Well, they have something. Okay, so you have Daredevil and this daughter of this superhero who was just murdered. He had gotten him off in court, being very clever and very bold and taking a risk. And he got him off, and then he got murdered. And then the daughter comes and says, you know, we've got to do something about this. Something's got to do it. And my father always told me not to just accept something, but to do something about it if I didn't like what was going on. And so she leaves. Then she decides to go out on her own. Well, that's one thing. So you have that. We find out what happens with that. But anyway, in the meantime, on the other side, in the city side, there's something going on. Somebody is making murals, like tagging buildings. And what are they tagging them with? Well, of course, beautiful art, interesting art, bizarre art, whatever you want to call it. And there's like 66 or 60 plus of these kinds of paintings. So that's a lot. Person's been doing a lot of tagging, but they can't get it off with their washer, their power washers. Why? Because the paint is mixed in with real blood. And they tested some of the buildings, and all of the blood tested, it's different from each painting to the next. So that means, because these are ginormous murals, or whatever you want to call them, there are probably 66 bodies out there, so there's a serial killer. Uh-oh, what are we going to do? So, that's the city story going on.
And I think it is really hilarious that you get to see, like, uh-oh, there's a serial killer. What's Kingpin gonna do about it? and guess what he does? He assembles a task force where they don't have to have body cameras, and they get to work overtime, and they basically get to do whatever they want because he's managing them. And so it's basically like a little gang of like the worst cops in the city.
It reminds me so much of what's going on. It's
and
so weird.
Safi, shut up.
I can't help it. It was weird. He said,
Safi, shut
you
up.
will not have to wear body cameras.
Safi, be quiet. And this task force is going to be weaponized against people like Daredevil, Punisher. And so this was kind of like the start of that. And I just thought it was hilarious, though. Like, this is Kingpin's solution to a serial killer. You know, like, it just makes you think, like, how would Kingpin deal with 9/11? You know, like, how would Kingpin deal with these, like, regular, everyday problems that, like, leaders have to deal with in a really stupid, corrupt way? That's how he deals with it. And so, and Safi...
If you had, listen, if you had a serial killer in a city, it's supposed or surmised or whatever that the person has killed over 60 people, the FBI would become involved in that too. I mean, it isn't because they did have a special unit that they make profiles of serial killers, and this is the most bizarre. Actually, it's fascinating. A bizarre serial killer who's really good at art and who mixes human blood and lots of it, and he must be really busy. I don't know, must be doing a body a night or something. I don't know, to do these elaborate murals. I mean, these just aren't little things. These are huge that fill the sides of big buildings. And so you would just have this little task force full of, well, okay. Yeah, if you want to parallel things, yeah, I guess you would. But it's just bizarre, and he really thinks he's done something. And it seems like, to me, he's using it as an excuse because he doesn't like people who dress up in costumes, or he doesn't like crime fighters.
Yeah.
So it's an excuse to put this team of bad cops. He knows they're bad. He even says that, but he doesn't say it like that. I know that you've expanded your boundaries and your limits to do the things that you need to do.
He says that there are people who have been down on their luck. Which is really funny.
It's really bizarre.
Because how could they be down on their luck if they still have a job in the police force?
Yeah.
Doing what they want to do.
So it is bizarre.
But
I think of it.
At the same time, and the only thing is I don't feel like it was properly built up with, like, him being like, okay, like, I'm going to start this task force and secretly use it to target superheroes. Like, I feel like there should have been a little bit more build up with that, and more build up of, like, his reasoning for doing that, because...
Well, I don't think there was a lot of build up to this serial killer thing and the crimes either.
That's what I said at the beginning of this video.
It's just like, plop!
That's what I said.
That was something, too.
Yeah, and then also there is a little tiny plot that I guess we should go over. Oh, two things. Number one, they showed Lalo. He was in the episode. Yeah. He was at the party. They showed him because he's a villain. He was on Hawkeye, which I did not watch. But he was like this villain in Hawkeye, so this was like another MCU connection cameo thing. And that was cool, I guess. But, like, they also had this weird little plot where the therapist girlfriend, she's talking to Matt about writing a book about vigilantes.
I wasn't even sure that was her. I was like, who is that?
Why?
Because she had her hair in a bun.
So?
And it was just the way he showed her. They didn't even look like they were close.
Safi.
And so I was like, who is that? It's just weird. Anyway, yeah, she's writing a book.
That was a weird little plot.
And she wanted help with Daredevil.
But you know what that reminded me of? It reminded me of Spider-Man with Mary Jane saying, I really like Spider-Man. You know him because you take pictures of him, etc., etc. Like, so again, it's like, I think that they're taking stuff from Spider-Man. I think that they're a little too influenced off of Spider-Man rather than the Netflix show of Daredevil. Finally...
That was nice to see Lalo. I like him.
Well, but finally, Daredevil... this was another thing that I didn't feel like it was properly built up to, though. He's just basically like, I'm just sitting around and I'm not doing anything. I'm sick of this shit. And then he gets up and he's Daredevil again. All of a sudden, they play the music and he goes after the Muse because the Muse has Hector's daughter hostage and he's killing her. And Daredevil, he whips his ass, and he even hangs him, and is going to kill him.
But the thing is, we've seen lots of different serial killers. Boy, this guy, he was a fighter himself.
Yeah.
And Daredevil would beat him, but he put up a really good, like he knew what he was doing, a good fight. And I was thinking, is this another superhero that's gone rogue or gone crazy? Because he fought like a superhero. But this was, he had a mask on with blood eyes, and he looked like he would be a serial killer, but he did not fight like the usual serial killer at all.
No.
These other serial killers you see, they would wimp out with somebody like Daredevil in probably 5 seconds. This guy kept up the fight, and I was like, wow. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and it's really funny because they keep on showing Daredevil as like this supreme badass, because there's this moment where he hangs him and it looks like he's smiling. Like, it looks like he's really enjoying himself that he's hanging this bad guy and he's going to get to kill him. And I thought, wow, this is a different Daredevil than we've seen in the past. Again, like with what he did in the first episode, or tried to do. And I thought that was awesome, to be honest, like that. But again, that reminded me of Spider-Man. It reminded me of Spider-Man 3, where he's fighting the Sandman in the train underground, and he almost kills him, or he tries to kill him. That's what that reminded me of, but in a good way. And so I'm saying, like, I can see the influences here. I don't think that other people have, which is kind of weird because you'd think that they would. I don't know. I don't know, though, because I'd be curious to see if anyone else has. And they paralleled this whole thing with Daredevil with the Kingpin. The Kingpin, he's had enough. He's really sick and tired of just being a mayor.
Yeah, he doesn't like all the official events where you hear people sing and you meet and greet people at a dinner who want something, and they'll give you donations, like quid pro quo.
Because, to be honest, it's almost worse than criminal activity because it's so dishonest and fake.
Yeah.
But it's like you're still basically involved in like this criminal type of game, criminal type of behavior. And the wife likes it. The wife doesn't mind it. She was actually like teaching Kingpin how to do this type of thing, how to interact with people at a party. But he goes downstairs and gives Adam an axe and frees him and says, you're free to go if you can beat me. And I used to fight guys who were a lot bigger than me, and all that it took was a little tool to even the odds. And so Adam, though, he's not a very good fighter, like the Muse.
Not at all.
He's kind of like how Safi would be if she tried to fight Kingpin. He was just like, and then Kingpin's like, wham, and he breaks the axe in half, and he destroys this guy, and he basically unloads on him all of his rage. But I don't know, I assumed at this point that he had already been like tortured for a year or whatever, so I think it was more of Kingpin just unleashing his frustrations about being mayor rather than on Adam in particular. Like, it could have been anyone that he got to do that to.
Tell me again why he wanted to be mayor.
I don't know. Power.
He doesn't like it at all.
Power.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there is something strange at the end where you see Adam's body and he is not dead, he's still breathing. And it's not an indie movie type of thing where it's like, uh-oh, look, there's a mistake there, the actor's moving and they're dead. It's like, no, the character is still alive. But they didn't really resolve that, like what happened at the end, so I don't know what's going to happen.
Wasn't that like it with Daredevil, though?
Yeah.
He was strangling him, or hanging him, and he changed his mind, and then really he had to get busy, and the girl had
saved
lost
the
a
girl.
lot of blood. He had to do where you beat the chest to get the heart going, and he had to do that several times, and because she had already lost a lot of blood, and that's what I said. It's like a sandwich, and a parallel sandwich, where they've built up this, whatever you want to call it, momentum, and Daredevil was finally did the Daredevil thing, and Kingpin finally did the show his true colors thing.
Yeah.
Which is being violent and not caring about anybody or anything but himself.
I gotta say, too, I hope that the show gets more brutal, because the people who made the show, they said that it was more brutal than the original show. And from watching the first episode, I could have believed that, because the way that that Daredevil dealt with the Bullseye was pretty brutal. But since then, there hasn't really been as much like brutal violence like in the old Daredevil show. So I really actually enjoyed this episode. I just found the first 3/4 really slow and kind of boring a little bit, to be quite honest. Like, I'm not really someone who's like, oh, I have a short attention span and everything is boring because I have to look at my phone all the time. It was a little boring and slow to me. For real.
Yeah, and what's so funny is we only assume, we don't know that Kingpin, did he beat up that guy all year long, or did he just keep him in a cage and now all of a sudden he's, unleashing it on him, which that's what it seemed like to me.
That's why I was saying there wasn't really a proper build-up. Like, I assumed that this would become like an underlying story where you would have these dinners between him and that guy, and they would talk to each other. Maybe like one night he'd really get out of line, so Kingpin would have him tortured. But instead of that, I don't know. I mean, because I don't know what happens to him after this episode. Like, he was still alive, so I don't know. And
then we have Daredevil. That's pretty
cool.
Conclusive.
Yeah.
He has not done anything for a year.
He's
except
back.
Be a lawyer. And he's back.
All of a sudden.
He's been thinking about it. The episode before this, little pieces began floating and falling together. And here he is. The only thing I would say is the serial killer thing. You have over 60 victims.
Yeah.
That means this killing has been going on a long time. That means 60 people have gone missing. And they're just now coming out with 2 girls who were found dead. But what about the other, let's say 60 people. So what about the other 58 people? Who are they? Where are they? Where are their bodies?
And Daredevil found this guy in like 2 seconds.
Yeah, I know. And that was
he found him so fast. He was like,
how did he
you know
that?
what? I'm sick of just sitting around. All of a sudden, boom! And he did. This is probably was my favorite part. He did this flying kick. He jumped in the air and did this flying kick towards the bad guy, like boom! And the bad guy was just like, oh shit! Okay,
He was a good fighter.
Got to fight against Daredevil. Oh shit, he's back.
So anyway, the thing is that in any other, we've seen a lot of serial killer stories, and there's even that trap show. That's a very different view or way to show.
That guy had only killed like 3 people, though.
I know that, but still, they had to show him at the concert, and they do all that stuff. He has to escape to the concert. He has his daughter, and then he goes back home. He has that girl. There's a whole big
Safi,
story. But
that movie was really bad.
This was just
it
like
was really
serial killer.
Yeah.
60 plus bodies somewhere. But their blood is on about 60 buildings.
That's why I was saying it felt like a Daredevil comic of the week. But I wish that more of the episode was investigating the serial killer rather than like, oh, he's there.
Yeah, but that's
he's there.
The thing is, this season is about, at least this is the way it appears, it's about Daredevil and Kingpin.
But that
and have
doesn't
them
matter.
next to each other.
That doesn't matter. Daredevil can investigate the serial killer. And he did
We'll
a
see.
little bit. I mean, he found him,
I know, but
which is really funny.
not
I mean,
much.
he
We didn't see anything.
found
we just
his
saw him finding him. That's it, and
he-
it was 2 seconds.
he found a secret lair and everything. Like
Well,
it was
what
like
was-
not even a challenge for him.
What was so funny is right before this, remember how we talked about the Kingpin put together a task force
Yeah.
of miscreant cops, I'll just put it like that, to get supposedly the serial killer, but really it was about masked, criminal crime fighters, about crime fighters who wore costumes. That's what it was really about. But he said told these other people, this is about finding the serial killer. We've got to have a task force for that, of miscreant cops.
I don't know what the point of what you just spent like 2 minutes
the
like.
thing is, he just right after he said that, Daredevil went out and found this guy in 2 seconds.
That's what I said.
And it's just so hilarious.
That's what I said.
That's what I mean. It's just you have these two, this dichotomy, this relationship where they're right next to each other.
Well, see, I was expecting, and Safi was expecting it too. I was expecting for Daredevil to help Kingpin find the serial killer.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I
I thought
thought
he was going to ask Daredevil to help him find.
Because I thought it was kind of funny. I mean, just the fact that like Kingpin's like, there's a serial killer, and the Kingpin has to deal with it. Like he doesn't give a shit about that. You know,
No,
he
doesn't.
doesn't give a
About
shit
it.
about like people getting killed and their blood being used in murals. Like he doesn't care. The only reason why he cares now is because of popularity, and also because that he painted a mural of him that made him look like a bad guy. That's the only reason he cares. And so it's like,
Does that sound familiar?
he's got to do something.
Yeah.
But Daredevil's like, there's a serial killer out. Well, I'll just go run out and find him. You know,
But before he did that, guess what? He got a call from that girl's mother,
Yeah.
right? And he said, so-and-so, I don't know her name is missing. I'm really worried she's never been late like this. And so automatically he goes and finds the serial killer, and guess who the serial killer found? The little girl. Well, she's not a little girl. Teenage girl, or whatever she is. Anyway, all real nice and neat.
Why is his name the Muse, too? Because
I have no idea.
a muse is like someone who is like someone else's like helper who like inspires them whatever
It's
to
an
make
inspiration. I'm watching the Grimm episode with the same thing, a muse, but this muse
Safi, fuck
causes
off.
people to do.
Fuck off with your
They
Grimm
become
bullshit.
obsessed with
Grimm
her.
is over.
I don't care. It's such a good show.
It's
I've been
long
rewatching it.
been over. Californication is over.
And these shows that we're talking about, Grimm and Californication, they're just such solid shows, you know.
Yeah, they were made for adults.
Well, they were made for. They put care into assembling them together. It's just like the other Daredevil.
Well, I really miss,
series.
and I really miss when TV shows felt like they had a lot of effort put into them, because
If you can see it.
nowadays it just feels like they're thrown together. It doesn't feel like there's that cohesive cinematic feel. Like even a show like Monk or Psych, like these shows felt like real shows.
Yeah, and it's
And-
like some of these new shows, it's like, I hope this works out. We tried 10 different things and have 10 different opinions and
That's what
10 different avenues of thought and
Yeah.
things that could happen. And we'll test them all and see which one fits.
That's what Daredevil Born Again feels like. It just feels like a bunch of random stuff.
Well, I don't think so.
So I hope that next season feels more cohesive and kind of like
How many more episodes?
3
Oh,
for this season. That's why I was saying, like, you know, this season it's kind of like a wah wah wah. It almost feels like it's half of a season. You know, like the second season's like the other half or something. Like it doesn't feel like it's been a whole season. It feels like the first half of what could be a good season, but the first half is pretty pretty dull in
Well,
some
we'll see.
some
The 3 more
respects.
episodes.
What would you give this episode, though? Episode 6.
I'll give it a B.
Okay.
The reason why is just because
Of the end.
the serial killer thing, and then I understand he lost his best friend,
Yeah.
and I think part of it he feels guilty, and that was his best friend, and he can't take back what happened. He's dead, and so it was very hard for him to return to what he was doing because of the guilt. But he's good at what he does, and he should keep doing it. And he shouldn't let anything hold him back. And so we have to see this kind of growth, and after experiencing such a heavy loss. And as for Kingpin, I don't know what to say about him. He doesn't like politics.
No.
He doesn't like the job at all. Because it's not just about control and saying, okay, I want this part of the town, the city, to be all fixed up, and I want it to build hotels and apartments and businesses so it's thriving and people can have jobs, et cetera, et cetera. It just doesn't happen overnight, and because you slap it onto some land, there has to be a lot of things involved, permits, and meetings. And
they said that the Kingpin is the Thanos of the street level heroes, which means he's the ultimate bad guy for like Daredevil and all these heroes who are just like street level, not really like Avengers level. I think it would be really funny. It's too bad that the show didn't take place back in the old first half of the MCU. Because it would have been really funny to see, like, the Avengers sitting around watching, like, the news about the Kingpin and just being like, oh, who cares? We got, like, villains who are trying to end the world to deal with, and you got this fucking criminal Kingpin guy. It's like, yeah, who cares? Like, Daredevil can take care of him himself, Like, because that's what they would say, right? Like, that'd be really funny to see. They should do that. They need to have that as a scene in the next Avengers movie, is like a cameo for Daredevil. Just have the new Avengers, they're sitting around, they're like, Daredevil can take care of that. Like, who cares about the Kingpin? He's not big enough for us to deal with. We have bigger problems. That'd be a good little scene. What would you think of that, Safi? Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah.
Like the Hulk being like, I could destroy Kingpin in one punch, but I really don't care. Daredevil can do it himself. It's like poor little Daredevil. Like,
I'm just thinking, there's 3 more episodes. I'm not really sure what they're going to do with it.
I know.
In other words, the only thing I can think of in general is that Kingpin and Daredevil the twain will meet, as they say, and there will be I don't know.
But you see
what fight. I just don't know how. I don't know how that's going to work.
Well, I give the episode a B-, by the way. But you see now how the story structure is so poor.
Yeah,
because you see now what I mean.
You've had all these episodes now, and then you just have 3 more.
Yeah.
And basically, they've had their growth.
Yeah.
And their character, what would you call it, transformation or reformation?
Well,
so now what?
If you broke down the season in terms of have a chart, a flow chart that followed the different plots of the show, it would look very messy, disorganized, and chaotic. And that's what I'm talking about with the story structure, is that it doesn't feel like there was a plan because of all these reshoots and things. And so I hope that the second season is better in terms of that. And I hope that the second season is a lot better in general, because this season was not the best.
And I don't think, Marco talked about this before, but I don't think the girlfriend works.
Well, I mean,
she's about the psychologist.
She would be a nice love interest, but it's just I really don't care about her and him. Yeah. He needs to be with Karen.
I don't think they have any chemistry. to say that truthfully.
No, they don't. But
I really get that is another thing I get sick of.
And that's a big problem nowadays.
People who don't have chemistry, and I'm going to tell you something. In the end, it doesn't work. It takes away from the movie or whatever you're watching.
And I feel like nowadays it's like they don't even care anymore, because it's like they've gone so far away from the whole romance side of things and having straight relationships on screen and having that be like a big part of a movie or show. And I feel like this girl character, she feels like she's basically a prop. Like, she's just there to have conversations with characters. Yeah. She's not really a character. I don't really feel like she's like Karen, where she was a real character.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
But it's sad because, I mean, she's a good love interest, but not for Daredevil.
I know.
Maybe she'll die. Maybe that'll be the finale. I don't know.
That's not good.
Well, I mean,
I just don't
that's
know.
one way to take care of a problem, Safi.
I just, really, he's found the serial killer.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be any more serial killings.
So what now?
That's what I'm saying. What now? There's 3 more episodes. What are they going to do? They're just going to build it up to
Punisher?
They meet.
The Punisher is going to be back on the show. So something with the Punisher? That's all I can think of. I don't know though, but it's going to feel so abrupt. Like, it already feels kind of abrupt. There's only 3 episodes left. Like, usually in a regular show, they would be having trailers saying, only 3 episodes left of Daredevil Born Again. And then they would show, like, the little trailer. But in this show, it feels like it's just, like, so fragmented and so all over the place with that type of feeling.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, and that's it, really. I don't think there's anything else to say.
No.
We got everything. And so if you want to see this show where a serial killer actually does some supreme fighting, I mean, I can't imagine, what's that guy everybody talks about that is good looking? And
John Wayne Gacy.
He wasn't good looking, but I mean...
That's the joke, Safi.
Oh, but the lawyer guy or whatever he was...
Ted Bundy.
Yeah. Doing this... I mean, this fighting was... I thought this guy... Of course, Marco seems like he knows who it is. I thought he was another crime fighter, like Gone Wrong or something.
Well, we'll have to find out. Like,
I know,
will they explain like anything about? Like, maybe they'll do like a court episode next episode with his character. I don't know.
I don't know. I think they used up all their capital on that. We'll see.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
They've only had 1 court episode this season.
You know, not on court episodes, on this serial killer.
I don't think
which
so.
Which doesn't make sense because, my God, we're still hearing about now Ted Bundy. I know the big one they've been talking about, that BTK.
Well, not really. They just kind of regurgitate the Wikipedia article that they don't really
they keep
figure out the true story.
Another movie and another movie.
It's
and
just
another documentary and
where they just say the same old shit over and over again.
Like John Benet Ramsey.
Like
Who killed John Benet Ramsey?
Almost like it's.
I think it's the brother. I think it's the parents.
Almost
I think it's an intruder.
Almost like it's disinformation propaganda.
I don't know. I just been
almost like
this was like
the real story. They're almost afraid of the people discovering the real story because every year they've got to come out with something new about Ted Bundy, Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy, over and over and over and over again. And you have to ask why. Why is that? It's not because like they're popular figures. It's because they have to promote their disinformation campaign about these stories and not really tell the real stories. And with this Muse character, I think the issue is going to be what's Kingpin going to want to do with him? Is Kingpin going to want to put him to death?
Well, maybe he'll make him part of the task force.
I found a little boy who was down on his luck. I'm going to put his skills to good use fighting Daredevil. That's what he should do.
I don't know.
Muse is down on his luck. So, Safi?
So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. We're nearing 700 subscribers. And become one of our subscribers. And if you see these shows, make a comment or two and tell us what you think. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.